Welcome to week 4 of our Shakespeare class. Before I dive in to a little bit more about Julius Caesar and Twelfth Night, I want to talk a little bit about two concepts in teaching and learning that are very important to me. And those concepts are the concept of intrinsic learning and extrinsic learning. So maybe you've heard about this before and maybe not. I'm not going to check any notes on intrinsic and extrinsic learning for you. I will just let you know that there is a kind of learning that we do that originates from inside out of our own, like fiery curiosity. That's intrinsic motivation, okay? That's our own intrinsic motivation. And to be honest, I'll just cut right to the chase. That's where the learning really happens. So, and of course, extrinsic is people who are just interested in taking a class to get a grade, to go and do something else, that hopefully they have an intrinsic motivation for. In the case of learning Shakespeare, we can jump through hoops with Shakespeare. We can, give ourselves flashcards. And that would be kind of following along with an extrinsic motivation to learn about Shakespeare. But we'll never learn about Shakespeare that way. To just explain a little bit about why I have broken up our class with the audio that has the commentary, and then I send you over to the Globe to watch it happen live. That was my inoculation against extrinsic motivation, because I'm hoping that I have introduced this to you so beautifully that you're just carried away, that you literally can now, after having seen or listened to the audio with the commentary, that you can go to the Globe Productions and just get it. And I just hope that that's happening. I may post this in a forum so that you can let me know how that is, low stakes forum. But sadly, I'm also responsible for assessing your progress and assessing whether or not you've learned a variety of outcomes. So we do have work in the class. So this is a week that will require some thoughtfulness toward the end of the week as you move into viewing the Globe production of Julius Caesar and then responding to some questions at the end. And hopefully this whole thing will then prepare you for our take-home midterm that we will be having next week. So that'll be some of the tools that we use to assess the learning. And again, what I'm really looking for is that sense of intrinsic enthusiasm, not even learning, just like developing that intrinsic enthusiasm for the work here. So good. All right, that having been taken care of, let's do something else. I'm just going to take a peek back now because we read and experienced Twelfth Night, and then we followed that with Julius Caesar. So what did we see when we saw Twelfth Night? Well, that's a comedy. And for our purposes right now, this is just a 200 level one. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed those scenarios. It was very fanciful and farcical, but also strangely dark. That whole plot to trap Malvolio in a prison cell. How is that inside of a comedy? Why would they still call Twelfth Night a comedy? Well, the reason that they call Twelfth Night a comedy is because it follows the other prescription for comedy, and that there's tons of marriages at the end. There are three marriages at the end, but it's not. It's. I just want to say this. I was just thinking about that. In the same way that a tragedy, the tragedy ends and the stage is littered with bodies. In a strange way, a comedy ends and the stage is littered with babies. And I know that sounds strange, but think about all those marriages. They will likely lead to babies. And really, there's something so primal to our species almost about tragedy and comedy, where comedy is this. These comedies end so hopefully, and of course our hope is with the next generation, and that's why that play ends that way. Of course, tragedy, and we just looked at one. Yes, we looked at a Roman history. Roman history taken surprisingly with accuracy from Plutarch, and to be honest, there's more in line with the writing of Plutarch in this Shakespeare play than there are deviations. Far more, far more. Down to the ghost. Down to the ghost is in Plutarch. If you can believe it, the ghost that shows up, that Brutus interacts with, that's mentioned. Bizarre. Bizarre. So, just to say, but also, Shakespeare's not only conveying to us that history, but he's structuring it with that tragic dimension. And of course, that does end up leaving the stage kind of covered with bodies, of course. And by covered, we lose both Cassius and Brutus at the end. And I'm considering that a stage covered with bodies. There are bloodier tragedies that that we will go through. But just for now, in terms of the difference between comedy and tragedy, a stage covered with babies. I mean happy babies, like sitting there, toddler level babies, little tiny babies, not so, it's kind of gross. But I just, the happy, happy things, something moving forward. And of course, tragedy has this sense with it. It just ends with these bodies. Now, of course, tragedy also, it can't end with bodies, or nobody's going to be interested in that. Tragedy's other function there, tragedy uses this stage filled with bodies so that we can end with a sense of stability. I would say Shakespeare has so many famous, I was just about to say, you can't use a superlative like the most famous tragedy, but you can't. But I'll just say one of my favorites then is Hamlet. I've mentioned it before, and definitely a play that ends with a stage filled with bodies. But then in comes another leader to fill the vacuum, and order is restored. In this tragedy, I would say this is like a lowercase tragedy, because I don't personally end up feeling that stability. And in fact, that last scene, it's not, it doesn't, it's neither, and how does Shakespeare try to take us to that stability? Well, he has the opposing force. Our protagonists throughout this play have been Brutus and Cassius, who have made mistakes, which is also kind of a feature of tragedy. They have made a number of mistakes. They have not prevailed. Oh, the doubt. Gal. Gee, I wonder how today's going to turn out, says Brutus, the guy going, hey, how about this one? Don't enter the big battle if you're thinking you don't know how it's going to turn out. Whatever, that's just me. But yeah, so mistakes were made, and this is also another feature of tragedy, that we might have some overconfidence, and that is that's another big feature. There are actually 3 really big mistakes that Brutus makes for sure. Let's count them off, shall we? Listen, I know I said I was going to talk about that stage and how order is restored. Promised to do that. But really, if we're going to be talking about this tragic nature, allow me to just kick that one down the field and talk about some of Brutus's mistakes. Cassius is conniving from the very beginning. So he, he sets up that whole kind of manipulate Brutus, sort of feel him out to see, like, was he going to be into preserving the Republic, to preserving this kind of democratic rule by doing this really horrible thing. I mean, and I think that's why we like these 2 characters from the very beginning, because they totally acknowledge how awful it would be to have to off Caesar. It's an awful thing. Caesar has been crossing some lines, and not just the Rubicon. It's rough. He has been leading toward this kind of kingly godhead, total dictatorship, one-person rule. One-person rule. Rome has not faced one-person rule since the Tarquin kings 400 years ago, and not on Cassius's watch, not on Brutus's watch. So what are those mistakes? Cassius, not making a mistake, and he actually rubs it in multiple times, or at least he rubs it in later in the play. Cassius suggests that they not only take out Caesar, but that they take out Antony as well. And God, I don't know, there's a kind of vanity. There's a kind of vanity in Brutus, whereas no, let's be super nice murderers. Let us, just only kill that. Cow. So obviously, Brutus doesn't have Antony killed. Another mistake is that they didn't invite Cicero, probably the greatest public speaker of his day, into the conspiracy, so that the greatest speaker of his day could kind of be part of those speeches at the funeral, the eulogies. We clearly needed more there, so that was a mistake. And I know I've pushed my 3 to 4 now, because they don't invite him, and then for some reason Brutus says to Antony, "Yeah, you speak last." Right? Yeah, go ahead and take that last word. Go ahead and take that last word. I don't need it. Yeah, you did, buddy. You did, man. So there's another mistake there. And then, of course, the last mistake, which is probably the most fatal of them all. Maybe they could have, considering that, like, whiplash of that battle. We're up, we're down, we're up, we're down. We're down, I'll kill myself. No, that wonderful battle presentation. But they did sacrifice the higher ground. And they had reasons for it, right? So, there's always this kind of like reasons and emotions feature happening in this play. Go! The skies are filled with fire. That's this emotions piece, right? But then that is matched by this reason piece. So as you're watching the Globe version this week, watch those moments. Watch that, especially that acting. The acting that you get to see this week is fantastic. I would be jealous to have such a class. And you know what? I know that seems somewhat self-congratulatory, but I took my earliest Shakespeare classes in a world that did not have the third version of the Globe Theater and did not have easy access to streaming videos like this, and had certainly no production of Julius Caesar produced in the Globe with some of the finest actors in the world. So that having been said, anyway, just now I just kind of gave you those sort of 4 big missteps. And just for those of you who are going like, wait a second, I've heard that tragedy involves this tragic flaw, the fatal flaw. There's some kind of congenital problem with the Scholars have kind of reconsidered this, especially in the case of this tragedy. People are complicated. We all have flaws. This is sort of where we are. We can overcome those. Sometimes we can't overcome our mistakes. And so in that sense, there's a bit of a takeaway that we can have with Julius Caesar, because he just kept making these mistakes. And some people I even said, that there was vanity. So somebody would look at, I feel like it's vanity. I really do. I feel like Brutus has this sense of himself as like so, noble and virtuous. And he's just going to do all this noble and virtuous stuff. Like not kill probably the only person that could immediately raise an army to oppose them. Yeah, don't do that. I don't know. I mean, if you're going to go for it, just go all the way. He didn't want to go all the way. He tried to preserve his image in some sense. And remember, listen, I don't like to play dueling like I'm smarter than you around Shakespeare. I'm not. What I like to do is to show you that, like, let it inside. Let your own voice, your own reactions guide yourself. Let it emotionally affect you. Shakespeare's not writing this so that we can argue about nonsense. He's writing it so that we'll be moved. And when I say, like, oh, it's a tragedy with a smaller lowercase t or whatever, I don't find it as moving. And now I've just reminded myself to get back to where I was. This moment of order here, I don't feel it. And so for me, and I'm just being honest, even with both of the productions that we just experienced, it's not perfect. But we have Antony. Oh gosh, like Antony is so duplicitous. I can't even read it because you can't believe it. Like if you don't believe these last lines, how can they move you? If you're looking at them and just going, Antony, you big liar. There's nothing moving about it. Just look at the last two lines in the very last scene, Act 5, Scene 5. No need to take up our time here, but I don't know. Do you believe Antony? I don't. I think he's a big fat liar.
I'm a little bit self-conscious that I just talked about something that I feel doesn't work as great in terms of that.
And again, Shakespeare was working with actual historical materials. And so he was limited by these, the actual things that happened. I would dare say that sense of, like, yes, he's aiming for that sort of tragic structure, but I could say that since he follows Julius Caesar up with Antony and Cleopatra, he is aware that order has not been restored to the universe. But so in that in that sense, it's perfect. So follow it up as a part of, say, a Roman trilogy, starting with Coriolanus, and then this one, Julius Caesar, and then Antony and Cleopatra. But not for this class. Just stay with me now. Stay with me now. Let's actually, matter of fact. So here's something that really works. Like the play works. It's a beautiful play. It is fantastic. And as I was saying, I did praise the pacing and the peril, the jeopardy, the stakes at the end of Act 5. Okay, so I'm personally not into, leaders committing suicide. It leaves me a little, whatever. So it's working with material. That having been said, let's dive right to that beautiful, fantastic turn. Let's say that we take those 5 acts and put like a fulcrum right up in the middle of them. Are you with me? Like it's a teeter-totter or a seesaw. Do they still have those? I don't know. But if you do that about in the middle of the play, right before the very middle of the play, we kill Caesar, right? And then immediately, dude, did you get the sense as you're watching that Globe production especially? But remember, the Globe production is informed by the play itself. And how fast. I know it might seem like, oh no, that production was 2 hours and 20 minutes long or something. And yet, boom, 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 boom. Everything is fast. It's just like, I don't know. I love that production. I love the play. And I was just about to talk about that. The middle of the play, we have the stabbing, but then we have the eulogies. And, of course, Brutus's eulogy is really suitable. So suitable, in fact, that not only does he accomplish his goal temporarily, he accomplishes his goal so thoroughly, he believes, that he wanders off and allows Antony to betray him. And it is this betrayal of Brutus that, and who knows, maybe it's foreshadow. Maybe it's foreshadow. Maybe we're not intended to believe Antony at the very end. So this is the finest of the Romans. You can explain that to me. Let's stay in the middle, though. Gotta stay in the middle. That's me. Gotta stay focused in the middle. So Antony wows that crowd. Okay, now that's incredible. Everything happens so fast. And before I move on to the almost the very next thing that Antony does, right? Stay with me. Let us just talk about that crowd for a second. I am trying to do this briefly. I'm not going to do, multiple hours on this. So stay with me. I'm trying to be brief. What does Shakespeare think about the people? This is a good question. What does he think about the plebeians? What does he think about them? Gotta turn the page in the version. Oh boy. Yeah. what does he think about them? So we've listened to the audio version, which helps us kind of understand. For people that are brand new to reading Shakespeare, it could be difficult because our tendency as readers is to sort of go with it. We sort of like, I don't, they were into it. It can be difficult to get how incredibly easily manipulated they are. They're just like horribly manipulated. Now remember, stay with the fulcrum here. I am sort of focusing on that middle moment, but then it just occurred to me when Antony was teasing with the plebeians. Oh, look, here's the opportunity to have a dictator. Hey, we're so happy. Caesar turns down the crown. The crowd is going wild. We get this in, sort of in a narrative from someone later. We don't see this particular part because Shakespeare's genius. We have to be built into like, that's the jeopardy. We've got to not have that. So we don't show that at that time. And we just know that it also sort of symbolizes the stature of the man god, right? Caesar, is he a man or is he a god? The people seem to have forgotten he's just a person. And Cassius reminds us just how mortal that dude is. And I don't mean by killing him. I mean by talking about him in illness and all these other ways. Just saying he's just like us. Why is this all happening to him? And all of that somebody might think like, oh, that's petty. Well, I love the big man with the big strong and he took over all the lands. Somebody could say that. And yet, the Republic has for 400 years since the ouster of the Tarquin kings functioned as a republic, a participatory republic. Now, we can question and sit around and go like, is it a true democracy, blah, blah, blah. Let us not. Let us just say that people have participation in decision-making at a governmental level here in Rome, and that is what is in question. Do we have one dictator begin to just like banishing people, or killing them? Kings tend to do pretty rotten things. They can. So I would say that Brutus and Cassius really are at the beginning of this, in their desire to preserve the Republic, preserving something very noble and worth preserving. But to get to this idea about the plebeians, somehow they can't piece it together what's at stake, and in fact are only in love with the shiny reputation of this incredible general, Caesar. He is an incredible general. He's done a lot. And they're willing to sacrifice whatever their participation is in government or their liberty. They're willing to sacrifice their liberty. For what? I do to restore a monarchy, to put in place a dictatorship. This is, of course, at the heart of Brutus and Cassius's trouble. They don't want to see that. They don't want to see a dictatorship in Rome after 400 years of participatory government. So there's that. The people, the plebeians, however, they don't have that. So we have the killing of Caesar, and then we have this, the eulogies. And what happens when Brutus doesn't really he has to kind of do an apology almost, or he has to explain what's happened. He's not really eulogizing Caesar. He's sort of explaining what's happened. He's saying what is at stake. Our liberty was at stake. Ambitious Caesar was definitely going to shut down our ability to participate in our government. And he manages to do it in such a way that not only do the people agree, but then again, and remember, I've asked this question, what is Shakespeare saying about the plebeians or just the regular people? So they can be reached because they do hear Brutus explain about liberty. But then what happens? Do they go too far? Do they say, let's carry the guy home and da-da-da-da-da, we'll follow him? No, you're unclear on the concept, plebeians, right? And Brutus underscores this by saying, like, nope, gonna walk home by myself. Here's my buddy Antony. Listen to him. Oh, it's another flaw with Brutus, a little bit trusting. Is he trusting? What is it? Go! He's just taken out the dude's best friend. I'm sorry. I know that it kind of jump around, but you see, that's the thing. I'm into it. I love it. And I hope you do too. Just think about these moments. Think about what could be motivating Brutus to just walk away, not even watch. He doesn't even watch. He's like, they're honorable men. He might have come out and said, like, hey, no, actually, Antony, stop with that rhetorical device that you're using there, because it's not having a good effect. Like, hey, what are you trying to pull? He's not even there to, like, give it the old, hey, what are you trying to pull? What are you doing? Listen, keep your what is it? Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. That's what happened there. Anyway, so we're at that fulcrum, and I just wanted to point out this next thing. We're still answering that question. What does Shakespeare think of the plebeians? So just to say, of course, their allegiance shifts from Brutus. Like that, one speech, boom. He's the man. Antony's the man. Brutus is definitely, we're going to kill him and burn his house. Okay? Ah! What happened? The memory of the people is super short, and they'll just follow shiny things. Is that what he's saying? That the memory of the people is short, and they're so dumb that they will just follow shiny things without critical thinking. Maybe. And to be honest, sometimes as I read this play, I think, how does sending that kind of message support the monarchy under which Shakespeare was working? It has to. It certainly can't challenge monarchical dictatorship, which is what he was under. So in some sense, is he saying to the people, look at you, you're so dumb, you need a mom. You need mom, you need Elizabeth, you need dad, you need James. You need to have a, monarch. Maybe. But let us go to the end of that scene where this is the eulogy scene where one of the plebeians jumps up on stage. I love the Globe version. Have fun. Just enjoy that Globe version. Here, I'll spoil this. It's a woman who's playing this role of this, hyperactive plebeian. And she's like, we'll burn them. We're all going to burn them all. So it's powerful. That's such a fun choice. Probably not one that was made at the time. Definitely not one that was made. But for our time, that's again a way, watch all of the ways that the Globe Theater just keeps it so interesting, especially for us and our generation. But so they leave there, and then the plebeians have now shifted their allegiance to Antony and are ready to just murder. They're just literally ready to murder. What's this next scene? They murder. They literally would just murder. They'll just become a mob and run out and start murdering people that they mistrust, anybody who's now against Antony, anybody's who they want to blame for the death of Caesar, now they'll just kill. Watch that beautiful staging in the Globe production when Cinna, the poet, comes out. He's terrified. He knows the vibe. It's fantastic. And then and then the plebeians all start to say, what is your name? Where are you going? Where do you dwell? Mobs are a terribly dangerous thing. And in this case, they do lead to that death. So why am I super skeptical of Antony at the end? Well, he creates a mob, which is exactly, he says, like, mischief do thy work. He knows what he's done. Savvy. So what do we have when we have a leader who manipulates people into harming others? Pretty bad. So Shakespeare definitely thought that was, not cool. Certainly the staging of the Globe. Well, I think that even in the text,
you cannot feel good that this mob murders Sin of the Poet, you know. And then when Sin of the Poet says, I'm Sin of the Poet, not the Sin that you're looking for, and then I go, kill him for his bad verses. Done. Finished. Watch, by the way, another thing that makes this contemporary. When you watch the Globe version, I'm pretty sure that same female plebeian dismembers the manhood of the poet. It's pretty rough. I am going to continue. So Antony launches a mob. It's really successful. Brutus and Cassius are hightailing it out of Dodge. It's really Rome. But they're hightailing it. And the next time we see Antony, check him out. Check him out. Act 4, Scene 1. These many then shall die. Their names are pricked. These many then shall die. Their names are pricked, man. We're going to do it, man. I mean, like, we are not going to make the same mistakes that guy made. We're going to, like, have a total bloodbath, terrify everybody, and then our regime is going to work. Because we understand the nature of terror. We know that we can rule with it. We're going to rid ourselves of our enemies and create a terror state. This is the danger of a one-person rule. And notice, who do you think? Do you think that we've rid the Republic of one-person rule as soon as Antony gets up there and says, these are the people that pricked to die? No, we haven't. What does Antony want? He want a bit of one person. Right? Right, does he? Why do you cross me? He asks Octavius. Later. But watch that moment. See, nothing's tidy. It's complicated. Right? He had designs. There's no doubt. He starts that scene. These many then shall die. Their names are pricked. And Octavius is like, your brother too must die. Consent you, Lepidus. I do consent. Prick him down, Antony. Lepidus then says, upon condition Publius shall not live, who is your sister's son, Mark Antony. Like, oh God, whatever. Like, I mean, they're just, we are now at the top of a brutal dictatorship where we can just, make these decisions. There's certainly no input from a Senate, no discussion, not even any reasons. They don't even give reasons. I'm actually adding reasons, right? Terror and their security. It's likely that that's the story here. Yeah, so... and all this happens right in the middle, and it's just go, go, go. That's why such an amazing, amazing play. I'm going to spend just a little minute talking about Twelfth Night, because we definitely want to connect it, right? So we want to connect it. We talked a little bit about how comedies, the stage is scattered with toddlers, let us say, right? Something looking forward. Tragedy, the stage is covered with blood, and it has a kind of a different effect. They both can be very complicated, of course. But when I say that, they both explore this kind of like duplicity, betrayal. And wait, how does Twelfth Night explore duplicity and betrayal? Well, masks, right? We have Viola trying to manipulate everything to get what she wants. Totally. Anytime you see somebody, especially like disguising themselves as a different gender, we're in kind of this masks zone. Masks are a frequent feature of Shakespeare's plays because he had a keen sense of how we lie to one another. We're just big liars. We even lie to ourselves. Malvolio. Man, what is he? Does he lie to himself? Is he really that vain? And of course, going against everything that he is supposed to believe. He's supposed to be this really upstanding Protestant Puritan. Supposed to be a Puritan. That's like a highest level of self-abnegation, and yet he's sitting here like, oh, I would like to sit around with some bauble, something to wind my watch, probably one of the most valuable things that anybody. He's materialistic and vain on his inside, but the side that he shows the outside is, of course, a mask of propriety. And in some sense, this I would say is just one way to connect Twelfth Night with Julius Caesar, because it's so much about deception. I mean, we can't have Julius Caesar, the play, without probably the worst deception, of course, is all of his so-called, toadying friends. The other senators, they have to get in so close that they stab him. So those are all masks in a way. And we'll be exploring those later. So let us move into this week. I have some links below that I want you guys to look at. And then even though I've put the Globe production of Julius Caesar on Friday, don't wait until then. It's long. I understand that. I mean, as much as enthusiasm as I have for it, you want to chunk these things a little bit, okay? I'll be honest, all of the actors look so similar to me. I had to read along. I have my text with me. If you happen to have like a little tattered, beaten up paper version, you can just have it right next to you. You need to, because if we're really following along, we need to know who is saying what, and we cannot mistake that. That's incredibly important. So yes, the forum where you guys are going to explore these questions is on Friday. Don't leave anything until Friday. Just get in there. I am trying to make the week manageable, but don't save it, because I get panicky texts and emails like, oh, I wasn't able to do that thing. We have enough time. It's the whole week, so we should be able to do that. And good. I look forward to seeing your work in the forums, and happy, super fantastic week 4.